people maybe can relate to at home because it affects us all. It's this question of offence and whether or not we are a bit too soft as a society and whether or not the state needs to be involved in protecting people from that. Is it not the job of parents to protect their children from what they are maybe seeing online? You can put safety features on phones, on laptops. Why should the state be able to say that? Because, I'm sorry, but the way that things are going, like in Canada, for example, I mean, if someone made a rather, close-to-the-bone joke, do they become a criminal?
Well, they already do in Britain. So exactly. We have the Communications Act 2003. So this is a problem that we have already. We are far too soft as a society, as you say, on these matters. And there is a sort of substitution going on whereby people now think it's the job of the state to basically parent for them. The state should be regulating all these companies and making sure the children can't access these things. So, well, actually, what are you as a parent doing, giving your child unsupervised internet access in the first place? Is a fairly basic question, which I think we've sort of let slip into the background, and I'm not convinced that's actually a good thing for children.
No, I'm not at all. And I also think if you leave it into the hands of people to decide what's offensive and what isn't, then frankly the woke brigade take over. Because, the idea now that you can't talk about what we can physically see going on in the Channel or in towns and cities right across the country, the idea that it's controversial in some ways to talk about things like grooming gangs, right? The idea that it's controversial to say that I think a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and all of this stuff, right? Well, if you leave the woke brigade in charge of it, then anyone who says that kind of thing runs the risk of having every single social media account cancelled and potentially with government backing.
So this is what's interesting about the suggested framework changes to the bill, because now they're saying, well, OK, but you have to enforce the terms and conditions which you lay out quite rigorously. And many of these platforms will still have in their terms and conditions things which will restrict your ability to say stuff like that. Maybe Twitter won't under Elon Musk, but the other ones still will. And so effectively, at the moment, there's still a certain amount of grace where if there's ambiguity, they might say, well, actually, this is a contribution to a debate, this is worthwhile, we'll put it up. Whereas now, if their government's sitting there saying, if you aren't enforcing your terms and conditions properly, we'll come for you, then that nuance goes.
Do you think, some people have greater freedom of speech in this country than others? I mean, I recognise, there was big Albanian protests, for example, not once but twice in this country. We've also seen the likes of, people outside a school in Batley in Yorkshire calling for a teacher's blood. I would imagine if I did that, I would get arrested. But then if you look around and you think, well, if someone like J.K. Rowling tweets that she thinks that someone born with a vagina is a woman and someone born with a penis is a man, that appears to be deeply controversial and they get cancelled. Is free speech OK for some and not for others, depending on what your views are, do you think?
So I think, Rowling hasn't been sort of kicked off any platform.
No, she's not been kicked off.
No. But... and I think, but that in part is because Rowling has enough terrifying lawyers, I suspect, that she'd be able to...
She can afford them, can't she?
She'd be able to afford them, and she'd be able to make a really big fuss if someone did that. I think that there is a point you're getting at here which is completely true, which is that the restrictions we have tend to be selectively imposed. They are more geared to what you might view as sort of left-wing norms of conversation than they are towards conservative norms, despite the Conservative Party nominally being in office for the last 12 years. And I think this is a real problem, this sort of online safety bill stuff, where you even if the Conservative Party puts it in the very best of intentions as it originally stood, it's basically a charter for the next Labour government to come along and say, well, we interpret it this way.
Chop it up.
Yeah.